Hello, my friends, and welcome back to my channel. So many of you have asked, so I am going to film making my sourdough English muffins. It's going to be a 2-day video because it is a 2-day process. I will make the dough now, tonight. It is after dinner, and I will let it ferment for 8 to 10 hours. So overnight is the best option. And then tomorrow, we will roll it out, cut it out, let it sit again, and then we will cook them. So, depending on how big you make your muffins, or how many points they are. Now, generally when I make them for me, I make them on the smallish side. I make 2 sizes. I make a sandwich size, and then I make like a eat alongside of eggs or an omelet size. I make them a little bit bigger for Doug. Now the ones I'll be making tomorrow will be a little bit bigger. I'm making jumbo ones for our friends, and I'm making normal size for my cousin. These are all leaving the house tomorrow. These are gifts, they're not for us. So tomorrow when I cut them out and talk about points, we'll talk further about that. But for now, I'm just going to show you how to make the dough for tonight. And then tomorrow, we'll finish them off. I use a recipe from Heartbeat Kitchen. I use her exact recipe. So I will just link that down below in the description box and go from there. She uses all weights, not measures. So you might have to convert that if you don't have a kitchen scale. But I can't imagine if you're a WW person, you don't have a kitchen scale, so we'll see. But I am going to attempt to wrangle with my tripod, find a good place for you guys, and let's get making this dough because I have a lot I need to get done tonight. Okay, so the first thing I have here is 220 grams of milk. Now her recipe calls for whole milk. That is one thing I do differently. I use 1% milk and it's absolutely fine. There's also 135 grams of water in here and 3 tablespoons of butter. I just use regular butter. You could probably reduce the points by using a light butter. I'm not sure. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to heat this in the microwave. You can also heat it on the pan on the stove, but I'm going to do it in the microwave tonight for about 40 seconds. It usually takes mine a little bit more, like maybe a full minute, just until the butter's melted. Then I'm gonna let it cool for 5 minutes because we don't want it to be too hot because it will kill the yeast in the sourdough. So I'm gonna take this and get this into the microwave. Okay, this is out of the microwave and I'm just stirring it around to finish melting the butter. It's good enough for me. There's some tiny little chunks in there, but it's fine. So I am just going to set this aside and we're gonna get started on the rest. I have the bowl from my stand mixer. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, you can absolutely do this by hand, I would think. But the stand mixer makes it easier because it's a very sticky dough. So in this bowl, I am going to add my sourdough starter. You wanna make sure your starter is active. Can you see that? How bubbly my sourdough starter is? That means it's active. I took it out of the refrigerator last night, I think. I had it dormant in the fridge. And I let it sit overnight and then I fed it this morning. So it is nice and active. Now mine's pretty mature. Mine's a couple years old, so it gets active pretty quickly. Okay, so I am going to put 75 grams of sourdough starter into my bowl. I just have my bowl on my scale. $75 grams is a little bit more, I think, than 1/3 of a cup. Or right about 1/3 of a cup, I guess. It looked like I had it a little overfilled. Close enough. And then to that, we're gonna add 15 grams of sugar. I'm just using regular old, though this is organic cane sugar. So just any kind of sugar that you use. We're going to tear out the scale. I probably should have measured this for you. I'm guessing it's about a tablespoon. Perfect. And then I am just going to mix that around with a fork a little bit. Now we're going to add our milk. I'm going to check the temperature on the milk just to make sure it's not like over 115 degrees. Oh no, we're good. It's about 103. So we're just going to add that in. And whisk it with the fork just to make sure your starter is dispersed throughout the liquid. Then we are going to get our scale back out. Tear it out. And we are going to add 500 grams of all-purpose flour. When working with sourdough, I always use unbleached. So 500 grams. My 500 grams for me is about 7 of these scoops. There we go. And then we're going to add 9 grams of salt. The recipe calls for a fine sea salt. Mine's not really that fine. It's the Celtic sea salt. So we're going to add 9 grams of that. Okay. Now here is where the mixer comes in. Okay, we have our bowl and we have our dough hook. So what we're going to do is we're going to start on low speed, number 2 on a KitchenAid, just to incorporate the flour for about a minute or 2. Then I'm going to scrape it down, and then I'm going to turn it up to 4 and just let it go for 8 minutes. I will continually look at it to scrape it down if it needs to be scraped down. But the dough is going to be very wet. So let's start it on 2 and just get it incorporated. Okay, we have the flour all incorporated. So now I'm going to put it up to 4 and let it knead for 8 minutes. Okay, it is the next morning, and as you can see, the dough has doubled in size and is nice and puffy and billowy. It fermented for about 9 hours in the oven overnight. The oven was off, it was not on. I just put it in there to keep it safe and give it a nice environment. The next thing we're going to do is flour the counter and turn the dough out. It is a sticky dough, as you can see. It's sticking a little bit to my fingers and clinging to the bowl. We are going to let this sit and rest on the counter for about 15 minutes before we roll it out and cut it out. Okay, the dough has been resting for about 15 minutes. I'm just going to smooth the dough out, manipulate it a little bit, put it into a nice ball. Now before we start the rolling and the cutting, we're going to need a place to put our muffins to rise. So what I'm going to do is get 2 baking sheets. I'm going to line them with parchment and sprinkle them with cornmeal. This is essential so the muffins do not stick. Once the sheets are prepared, I'm going to get the dough ready. You can do this one of 2 ways. You can either use a rolling pin to roll it out, or you can just use your fingers to pat it out. You just want to make it a nice rectangle, about 3/4 of an inch thick. And then I am going to use, on this particular batch, a 3.5 inch cookie or biscuit cutter. When I make them for myself, I make them smaller so they are less points. Okay, once they're cut out, you're just going to take a nice spatula and transfer them over onto the cornmeal dusted baking sheet. Once you have your first set on the baking sheet, you can take your dough, re-roll it, and start again. Okay, the English muffins are done. Normally, if I use a 3-inch cutter, I get 15 to 17 out of it. Because I used a bigger one, I only got 10 out of it, which is fine because, like I said, they're not for me. And now what I'm going to do is cover them with a light cloth. And I'm going to let them sit here for an hour to an hour and a half. And like I said, they're not going to rise like a bread dough, but they will get very puffy. And then we will go on and we will cook them. Okay, here are our English muffins, nice and puffy. I have cast iron skillets heated to a medium-low heat. I'm just going to carefully pick up the muffins and transfer them right into the hot skillet. You can use cast iron skillets, you can use a cast iron griddle, you can use an electric griddle, you can use whatever you have available. They are definitely the best things to use. You're just going to put them into the pan, let them cook about 7 minutes per side, checking them to make sure they are not burning. Even though I use the same exact cookie cutter, you can tell I'm not consistent. I don't know why. This one's huge, this one's not. I use the same cookie cutter. So I need to work on that, but we all have room for improvement, right? Here are the finished products. There is one missing because the babies decided they wanted to have one for lunch. So there they are, the sourdough English muffins. Like I said, I made these pretty big because I'm giving them away. I generally make mine smaller. I will link the recipe below. It will be on my website, and I will have the link to your personal points. But you have to remember, it depends on how many you make. I am going to base it on 15 using probably a 3-inch cutter. Well, my friends, there you have it. That is how I make my sourdough English muffins. It's a process. It's not hard. It just, you know, there's 3 steps to it. Each step goes pretty quickly. Of course, it takes longer when I'm filming, but it's really not hard. It's really not bad. Now, I will try in the next couple weeks to do another English muffin recipe that does not require sourdough in case you do not keep sourdough. So I will work on that in the next couple weeks. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below if you keep sourdough starter and what you like to do with it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.